For over a century, Canada's economic fate has been largely written in Washington. It has been the reliable partner, the quiet neighbor. Some might even call it the 51st state in all but name. Its economy is so deeply intertwined with the United States that for years, about 3/4 of all Canadian exports flowed south. While that number has recently fallen to a record low of 68.3%, that dependency is still massive. This relationship has brought prosperity, absolutely, but it has also bred a dangerous dependency. Now, as the United States becomes more unpredictable with the constant threat of new tariffs and protectionist policies, the dependency looks less like a partnership and more like a liability. Economic models have warned that a major trade war could shrink Canada's economy, and a hypothetical 25% tariff could slash its GDP. But what if this is a once-in-a-generation chance to change the story? While America looks inward, Canada has a historic opportunity to finally step out of its economic shadow. The question is no longer if Canada can forge its own path, but how. Here are 5 bold strategies that could help secure Canada's economic independence. The first and most obvious strategy is for Canada to stop putting all of its eggs in one American basket. For decades, Canadian businesses have heard warnings about over-reliance on the U.S. market. Recent trade tensions have turned that quiet warning into a blaring siren. The solution is a focused, aggressive push for trade diversification. This isn't just a vague idea. The framework is already here. Canada has 15 free trade agreements covering 51 countries, giving it preferential access to over 1.5 billion consumers. 2 of the most powerful tools in its arsenal are CETA, the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement with the European Union, and the CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership. CETA has already eliminated tariffs on the vast majority of non-agricultural Canadian goods heading to the EU. The CPTPP opens up a massive trading bloc in the Asia-Pacific region and is already showing results. In the first few years after it was implemented, its trade with new partners in the agreement like Japan and Australia grew significantly. The government's official strategy aims to boost overseas exports by 50% by 2025. This means actively encouraging Canadian businesses to look east and west, not just south. It means leveraging new trade deals to sell Canadian lumber to Japan, agri-food to Europe, and clean technology to the fastest-growing economies in the Indo-Pacific. Recent data already shows a surge in merchandise exports to countries other than the US, a clear sign that businesses are getting the message. The United States will always be a crucial partner, but it can no longer be Canada's only major partner. A second strategy is to turn inwards, not with protectionism, but by building a stronger, more unified domestic market. It's often easier for a business in Ontario to trade with Texas than with Alberta. For too long, Canada hasn't been one single economy, but a fractured collection of 13 provincial and territorial markets, each with its own frustrating maze of regulations. These internal trade barriers are estimated to cost the Canadian economy as much as $200 billion annually, limiting growth and making the country less resilient. Tackling this is like discovering a massive, untapped market right at home. The good news is there's finally serious momentum. Spurred by external trade threats, the federal government has moved to eliminate dozens of its own exemptions from the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. Provinces are also starting to tear down these walls with agreements to recognize each other's standards and reduce barriers in key sectors. The goal is to create one seamless Canadian market. Imagine a country where a skilled worker's credentials are a passport to work anywhere from St. John's to Victoria, where goods move as freely between provinces as they do between states, and where government contracts are open to companies nationwide. This doesn't just make businesses more efficient, it fosters national unity and strengthens the country's ability to withstand shocks from the outside world. By creating a truly free market within its own borders, Canada builds a more self-reliant and prosperous nation from the inside out. For a third strategy, Canada needs to confront a painful paradox. It has a highly educated workforce and world-class research, but it consistently fails to turn its great ideas into globally competitive Canadian companies. For decades, the story has been the same. A brilliant tech startup is born in Waterloo or Vancouver. It shows immense promise, and just as it's about to scale up, it gets bought out by a larger American firm. This isn't just a brain drain, it's a value drain, where the wealth and intellectual property generated in Canada ends up enriching another economy. To reverse this, Canada has to get serious about fostering innovation and, crucially, commercialization at home. This starts with smarter incentives. Its R&D tax credits have been good at funding research, but poor at helping companies grow. Policies are needed that reward companies for scaling up, for manufacturing in Canada, and for holding onto their patents. Another key piece of the puzzle is access to capital. Promising Canadian firms shouldn't have to go to Silicon Valley to find the venture capital they need to grow. Expanding access to domestic funding is critical to keeping the country's future economic giants rooted in Canadian soil. Finally, Canada needs to ensure that publicly funded research comes with a plan for commercialization in Canada. It's not enough to invent the future, it needs to own a piece of it too. Countries like South Korea and the United States have made innovation a core part of their national strategy. Canada must do the same, transforming itself from a nation of brilliant starters into a nation of global finishers. This is how the country moves up the value chain and ensures that the next global tech leader has a maple leaf on its headquarters. This next strategy might sound counterintuitive, especially when facing an aggressive trade partner. Canada needs to lean into economic openness, not retreat into nationalism. It's tempting to think the answer to American protectionism is Canadian protectionism, to throw up its own walls and buy Canadian at all costs. But history shows this would be a profound mistake. The data is clear. Canada's periods of greatest prosperity have coincided with greater economic openness. Protectionism, by contrast, has historically led to slower growth and made it more vulnerable to foreign pressure, not less. The goal isn't to shut the world out, but to invite it in on Canada's terms. This means maintaining an open and predictable investment climate that attracts foreign capital. Foreign direct investment brings new technologies, management expertise, and access to global supply chains, all of which boost Canadian productivity and wages. The government has already begun updating its foreign investment rules, giving it more power to review deals for national security reasons, especially in sensitive sectors like critical minerals and AI. This is the right approach. Targeted screening, not a closed door. Canada can safeguard its strategic assets while still welcoming the investment that helps its economy grow. It's a delicate balance, but it's one the country must strike. By positioning Canada as a stable, reliable, and open place to do business in a turbulent world, it can attract the high-value investment that will build the competitive industries of tomorrow. Openness is not a weakness. In a protectionist world, it is its competitive advantage. The fifth and final strategy is perhaps the most uniquely Canadian, leveraging its multicultural identity as a powerful economic asset. For decades, Canada has rightly celebrated diversity as a social strength, but it's often overlooked that it is also a massive economic engine. Canada's open immigration system is a direct contributor to GDP growth, innovation, and entrepreneurship. New Canadians don't just fill gaps in the labor market, they start businesses at a higher rate than Canadian-born citizens and create jobs. A significant share of patents and R&D activity in Canada comes directly from immigrants. This multicultural fabric gives Canada a unique advantage in a globalized world. Its diaspora communities are living bridges to the world's fastest-growing markets. A software company in Toronto with employees from India, Vietnam, and Brazil has an innate cultural and linguistic advantage when trying to export to those countries. The national brand, one of openness, stability, and diversity, is itself a powerful tool for attracting top-tier global talent and investment. While other nations turn inward and grapple with division, Canada's reputation as an inclusive and welcoming society becomes a beacon. By fully embracing and promoting this identity, Canada isn't just engaging in feel-good social policy. It is executing a shrewd economic strategy. It supports the social cohesion necessary for long-term prosperity and gives it a distinct and marketable brand on the world stage. Its greatest social strength can and should be one of its greatest economic strengths. So there you have it. 5 bold strategies to secure Canada's economic future. Diversifying its trade beyond the US, building a single powerful domestic market, fostering homegrown innovation so its companies can scale up. Embracing economic openness as a competitive advantage, and leveraging a unique multicultural identity as an economic engine. None of these is a magic wand. They require long-term vision, political courage, and a fundamental shift in the national mindset. For too long, Canada has defined its economic success in relation to its southern neighbor. Now is the time to define it on its own terms. The task is not to sever its ties with the United States, but to rebalance them. to move from a relationship of dependence to one of partnership between sovereign equals. This is Canada's chance to finally step out of the shadows and forge its own independent path to prosperity. But what do you think? Are these strategies realistic? And what's the biggest hurdle Canada faces in achieving true economic independence? Let me know in the comments below.